I'll now open the meeting for the Lynn Traffic Commission. Can we please have a roll call?
Kenneth?
Yep.
Commissioner Hall?
Here.
Commissioner Rowe?
Here.
Commissioner Skillion?
Yep.
Commissioner Brienza?
Here. Oh, we're on.
I assume you've each gotten the chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. All right, under new business, number 955, establish two 15-minute parking spaces at 403 Essex Street. Do we have something, any letters or correspondence on that?
This came from the businesses at 403 Essex, 391 and 395. It was that Edwin Gomez emailed me, and he was looking for some relief. A collective business owner operating mainly on Essex Street in Lynn, Mass. has come to an agreement asking the Lynn Public Works to help us install 15-minute parking signs only in front of our stores. The idea came as a result of recent activities on the street. A new tire shop moved recently into the neighborhood. They are open 7 days a week, and they have a numerous car parking along the street, making it impossible for others to park. This is why we're asking the City of Lynn to interfere on our behalf, giving us privilege of having 15-minute parking signs only in front of our businesses. And it was signed Central Liquor Store, 395 Essex, Music Central, 391A, Africa Market at 403 Essex, and Visitor Market at 391 Essex.
As far as the first one, number 955, what are the wishes of the
Did we
board?
hear anything from the ward councilor?
Have not.
It's in front of all the businesses. I'll make a motion to set it down for a public hearing. If we could send something to the council to let them know.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded for number 955 to set it down for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Number 956, which is similar in the same area, it's just two other addresses on Essex Street. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to same.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to set that down for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Number 958, establish no parking in front of 46 and 50 Hacker Road.
That was a request of Council Lozey.
Mm-hmm.
Having a unique problem with the above address. The roadway is very narrow, and they're having problems pulling out of their driveways in front of these two homes.
I'll make the motion to set that down for a public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion made and seconded to set down number 958 for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Number 959, establish a stop sign on Maple Street at the intersection of Ford Street.
And this was a request that came through the mayor's office from a Mr. Joseph Barber. He was requesting that we put a stop sign, and I'll read it. I would like to request that a stop sign be placed at the intersection of Maple Street and Ford Street. There is currently only a stop sign on Ford Street. There also should be a stop sign on Maple Street for traffic turning left onto Ford. Traffic turning left onto Ford does not yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk and does not allow traffic on Ford Street to turn onto Maple Street. This is not only dangerous, but also causes major backups down Ford, especially during evenings at Manning Field or Frazier Field. And he attached a link with a picture, which I sent to you.
I'm not a huge fan of a four-way, or I guess it would be a three-way stop in this instance, from a traffic operation standpoint. So I'd like to make a motion to deny this one.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion made and seconded to deny number 959. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Number 960, establish left turn only lane on Boston Street at the intersection with Ford. and a right-hand lane, which would be marked straight and right. So that was a request that I received. Coming inbound, that's how the lanes are marked, a left turn lane and then a straight lane, or you could turn right into CVS. Problem is on the other side going outbound, cars pass on the right-hand side, there's no markings, it's wide enough for the two lanes. So there was a request made that we make that two lanes down there, one being a left turn lane, and on the right-hand side going straight or taking a right.
I know the problem you're describing, and it's like the gauntlet down there, it's pretty dangerous. I can look into striping it so that there's the two lanes, but I'm concerned about the signal heads. I believe there's only one signal head up there now, and I'm not sure if that's something I'm not sure if you need a second signal head if you stripe it for two lanes. It's something I'll have to look into.
Shall we table it and so you can put some more time into it?
Yeah, that would work.
Motion to table, so the DBW can take a look at it.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded to table number 960. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Is there anything under old business that anyone would like to bring up?
I would like to take 950 Washington Street, the MBTA. I believe we have somebody from the MBTA here if you want to come up front in case there's any questions.
All right, do you want to take it off the table?
I want to take that off the table.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to take number 950 Washington Street, a request from the MBTA, off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I don't know if we want to just go through it, but there are some people in the audience, just so they can understand. This is eliminating spots that are present bus stops. If you want to just give like a little brief.
So, sorry, I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm gonna try to yell.
You
but
can go to the
so-
podium if you like.
Oh, all right. Just go over there if you want. There. Oh, too many choices.
Not if he's sick.
Eric, we know who you are, but can you just give your name and your title? Just
So I'm Eric Berkman. I'm the Director of Transit Priority for the MBTA, previously the Lynn District Planner, which, as you might deduce from the name, includes Lynn. So we had started on 3 different corridors for bus stop consolidation. My understanding is that there's 2 on the agenda tonight. One is Washington Street. We will have previously had about, I think, 8 stop pairs there. We're taking it down to 3. So those other 5 pairs, those are parking spots that are returned to people along the south side of Washington Street because the north side is already no parking. One of the reasons we like to consolidate our bus stops is that previously it was just sort of like, oh, I want a bus stop in front of my house. So you called up the MBTA, we put a sign up, and we moved on with our lives. Now we have situations where we have bus stops that are 200 feet, 150 feet apart. So a bus is 40 feet long, so that's about 4 bus lengths between bus stops, which is just very, very close. It slows down the service for everybody. It takes up a lot of extra parking spaces that you guys can use for street parking or, whatever else you use a parking space for. The other corridor that's on for tonight, I believe, is yeah, thanks. The Commons, north and south. So that's another one where I think we had 12 stop pairs and we're bringing it down to 4. That sounds about right. So that's a lot of additional parking that's returned to you guys on the Common, and it makes the spacing a little bit better for us. We've been working on these stop consolidations with members of the Traffic Commission, the Council, the Mayor's office since like February, I believe. And we really spent a lot of time making sure that the distance is right for our bus operations and also that you guys can get some meaningful additional road space and curb space for your parking or pickup drop-off or whatever the use is there.
Well, we're going to deal with Washington Street first. If you want to open it up.
Basically, what this will do, anybody's been behind a bus, the bus pulls in or stops in the street, it's going to eliminate a lot of stops. The Ward 5 Councilor, Diana Chakutis, have been working on this heavily. The council president and the at-large, all the councils have been pushing to get more parking for the people. Washington Street is really tough because there's no parking on one side, so it's a win-win for the city. It's a win-win for anybody taking the buses, because it's going to be a much better process, a lot faster. It's going to be improving the flow of traffic also. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I believe we'd have to open it up for a public hearing right now, if that's,
I'd like to make the motion to put it out for a public hearing.
I'll second that.
all right, motion made and seconded to open it up for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote, so I'll open up the public hearing for that right now.
Mr. Chairman, should we open up both of them at the same time? That way we could do them, they're pretty much the same.
I'd rather do them one at a time, just to keep it clarified, that's all. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor of the Washington Street bus stops? Anyone here that wants to speak in favor? Council Seer?
Thank you. Yes, I'm in favor of this. I believe the council, Diane Jacutis is also, and I believe my colleagues here tonight, the at-large councilors, we're in favor of taking this off the table, and we're in favor of these locations along the Washington Street corridor.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the hearing.
May I make a motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the request from the MBTA as far as Washington Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. You want to do the same with,
9:52, I'd like to set that down, open the public hearing.
first we'll take it off the table. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to take 952 off the table.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to remove 952 from the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote.
I'll also make a motion to set it down for a public hearing.
Second. Open.
Open it up for
Open.
public
Open it, excuse me, open it for a public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to open it up for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. So we'll open that up for a public hearing. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor of 952, the North and South Common bus stops? Council Seer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Councilor Jacutis has been working on this for a while. Myself, my colleagues, all the at-large councilors were in favor of this for the bus stop and the routes. So, 952.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 952.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve 952 for the bus stops on North Common and South Common. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could have the MBTA come back to the podium again, just to discuss a little bit about these layovers, because I know people were here in the audience for it today. There is nothing on the agenda for the layover today.
Correct.
The only thing I would like to do is make a motion. I believe we have an alternate site that we're thinking of. I'd like to maybe do it on a trial basis. If you want to just touch a little bit of basis on that.
Sure, so I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna turn this.
You can try.
Worked out pretty well. So I want to start, just like my colleague Kat mentioned at the last meeting, to say that the triangle, we're no longer considering the triangle. We heard the community opposition very clearly before the last meeting, so that's no longer one of the options. Since the last meeting, we had been meeting with Councilor Seer in the mayor's office and members of the Traffic Commission, trying to figure out another good alternative. we looked at the Swampscott commuter rail station, but found that the shape of the parking lot and the width of the roadways wasn't going to make it a very viable solution. Also, it's a higher fare zone. So we were kind of going back and forth, and we figured out a way to adjust the schedule so that we only need one layover spot at a time instead of two. And then we also determined that we only need it on the weekdays, not on the weekends. So the solution that we came to as a temporary basis just to get, because currently the buses are sort of laying over wherever they have a spot because there's not a dedicated layover position. So one of the commissioners suggested that on a temporary basis we find a location so that we at least know where to expect the layover and then bring it up for the full decision I believe the next commission meeting, depending on what we find with this temporary solution, right? So anyway, so what we're looking at is the stop at 54 Ocean Ave would be the layover position, weekdays only, so you could still park there on the weekends. And then the overflow position, because of course we still have the need for 2 spaces until we can adjust the schedule for January. The overflow position would be across the street at Salamini at the Revenue bus stop, which we can't use as a permanent solution because it blocks the other buses from accessing the stop as they come through. But as I said, for January, or it might be December 21st, the last Sunday, well, whenever the winter rating begins, which is the end of December, early January is when that change would occur, that we would only need the 1 spot. So for now, we still will need 2 layover positions, but we'll have one occurring at a bus stop and the other occurring at a dedicated space on a temporary basis until we find a permanent solution. So what that means in the meantime is you can expect to see, hopefully, you won't see buses laying over at the Triangle, you won't see them laying over at the other Ocean Street location, because we'll have an actual spot where we say to our operators, this is where you're expected to lay over the bus, and if you're not, then you're not following the rules. The other thing I want to mention is about idling. So there is a 0 idling policy, and I'm not saying that there's 100% compliance with that, because I'm a realistic person. So, but what we can do is we can find solutions to better enforcing the idling problem, which we haven't totally laid out exactly how we can do that yet, but typically what that is that's more inspectors in the field who are sort of out and about looking to make sure that there's not an operator that's idling the bus. And then in the interim, I would suggest that whenever you see a bus that's idling, that's not in service, that you could use our website to make a comment, but I find sometimes it's easier to use the phone number, which is 617-222, I'll repeat it in a minute, 3200. It's 617-222-3200. And when you do that, just make sure that you get the bus number, not just like 441 or 442, but the 4-digit number that's on the side of the bus and the front of the bus. Usually in Lynn, it usually starts with a 06 or a 07. So we'll find another way of enforcing the idling, but also in the meantime, if you see a bus that's idling, do feel free to complain. We do get those comments and complaints in our, they do make it to the planners. I've got a bunch of them in my email all the time. So, yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything. Did they move the bus stop sign that was in front of your house?
They did, but now the layover is gonna be there.
Yeah. Yeah, so this lady here, I had spoken with her after the previous meeting, and I believe your concern was people hanging out in front of your house, so I know it probably doesn't feel much better to you, but...
And taking up the parking and blocking the driveway
Yeah.
and idling right in front of the house.
So one thing that we did hear you on was the people lingering in front of your house, so hopefully that at least won't be a problem anymore, and as I mentioned, anyone who sees a bus that's idling, feel free to call or use our website.
No, if you move that south another 30 feet, close to the Salamini entrance to its parking lot, then they won't be in front of their house. It's just 25 feet.
So you mean you mean directly in front of Salamini or between Ocean Terrace and the Salamini driveway?
Either to, at the beginning of his driveway or at the end. It's So you have that little gray building,
Mm-hmm.
just south of that. If you move your bus stop and you're idling,
Mm-hmm.
it won't impact
So
the floor as much.
just
But
so I
you have to
understand,
Move it about 30 feet.
just so I understand, so you mean on the other side, between the driveway that's across from Salamini, not on the same side as Salamini?
It's his parking lot on the other side.
Yeah, right. So, but you mean between Ocean Terrace and the driveway to the parking lot? That was one of our options for layover that we had discussed, and I think either would be,
Yeah,
yeah,
because that way you free up parking.
yeah. But there's still an abutter that's directly there, Ocean Terrace.
No, but not by his house, after his house, towards 54, just past the little gray building.
That's how about,
Yes,
can I catch
lawn.
up with you after and I can figure out exactly where it is? Yeah.
Plus, what also has happened on the other side, on 53, there was a no parking from 51, no parking to corner that goes all the way around. And his driveway is about 30 feet wide, but he takes up the whole street, so there's no parking on the other side also. And that's not right either.
So also the no parking would be just on weekdays, so you can still park there on the weekends, just so you're clear.
My concern is the safety issue with the incoming traffic coming out the driveway, 54 Ocean. If there's a bus idling or just there, no one's gonna be able to see or make that left turn. So that's a safety issue.
And that's about 8 cars that come out of that driveway a day, so.
Okay.
I know
Thank
you're trying
you.
to make the MBTA's life easier, but you're making myself and my tenants' life, it's just an inconvenience.
Are these supposed to be in the public hearing? Do you want me to keep doing this? Is it supposed to be in public hearing?
It's not a public hearing, they just figured you were up there to kind of
right.
explain.
I think it would be nice if we can answer
Idea
people's
was-
questions
All right.
tonight. Everybody's fine with that?
Last meeting that I was at, they said, oh, we'll adjourn until today.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be another public hearing about this today.
So
I
the,
also live at 54 Ocean Street, and I do not agree with the bus stop being there or them choosing to have the layover there. It's a temporary situation, but I feel like you're just saying temporary so people will forget and then it'll become permanent. And I'm not okay with that. I've lived there for over 10 years with no bus stop there. Why do you just get to put a bus stop there all of a sudden?
So, thank you for your comment. I guess we're really just like the gentleman over here mentioned, I'm really here to try to make the MBTA system work, and, we almost doubled the service on this corridor, so I'm happy to work with everybody here and work with the council and the commission on finding a layover position. We have considered a lot of options, and we're,
Why does it have to be in front of a residence? When I have to hear the residents start and stop and idle, why do I have to listen to that in my home?
well, so again, I would just say if you do hear, if the bus is idling in front of your house, to call and make a comment, or call in, or use the website to make a comment on that.
So if I may, this has been going on for quite a while now, and we're trying to figure out a location where they can put a layover spot. No matter where it goes, it's gonna have an impact on the neighborhood. So we're trying to figure out what the best area to do that is. So this is temporary. I agree with what you were just saying about temporary could be 6 months or a year. So I think we should put either a 90-day time frame on that, if the committee would agree to that. Like I said, wherever it goes, and there's been a lot of talk in the last month between the MBTA and the city and a lot of people that live down in that area. So they are moving the bus stops around. They're eliminating a lot of bus stops because every 150 feet, there was a bus stop along Lewis Street, Broad Street. Didn't make sense. So they are adding a lot more parking to the area.
I think one of the things too is it's not just, it's in front of like residential homes, but why can't it go somewhere where the home is
there is one house that it's gonna impact, there's no doubt about it. There's two family, and then there's two businesses which have a parking lot on the side. So that's why that location was picked for the bus stop as well as the layover spot. And it's experimental. We have to see if it works. And, you know, I don't want to see one there in any part of the neighborhood, but the reality of it is, in order for us to keep the buses going in that neighborhood, we need to have an area. These buses aren't going into Marblehead, they're not going to Swampscott. They're Lynn buses carrying Lynn residents, and that's the issue.
So at 9, there's an agenda item for 9:52 here. that,
Pardon?
An agenda item for 9:52 that we're going to discuss, I think, consolidating the bus stop on Blue Street.
Yeah, I think that one's still on the table.
It's not coming off the table.
Yeah, they haven't, the Traffic Commission hasn't approved that consolidation yet, pending the decision on the layover spot.
So they haven't approved it, but they've already removed the bus stops, and they moved some bus stops already, because my son tried to use the bus last week, and I sent him to 3 non-existing bus stops last week. And apparently, there's a new bus stop there with no bus time. So
Which,
it's supposed to, I think they moved, so they moved from, when I've lived there, they moved 4 bus stops already. So between Michigan Ave and up to, I think, Lafayette Park, there's supposed to be one on
Phillips?
going towards Wonderland, and then on the other side, apparently there's one on the corner of my house and for Norcross Terrace.
Okay,
So there's parking there, and I'm afraid to let my son stop at that stop 8 because there's no bus stop there.
yeah,
And 2, I don't want him coming out between 2 parked cars
Yeah.
into the street. So if there's gonna be a bus stop there, we'll have a bus stop there. If it's not, it would've been nice to have kept the old bus stop sign there, because now they're like completely removed with no direction as to where the new bus stop is going to be.
I'll look into those signs for you.
It's not only the sign, but you're gonna have to put no parking there, because right now
Yeah.
there's parking there.
Yeah. All right.
Just to back up a little bit on the layover space, I'd like to get an explanation for why it's necessary to have a layover spot versus extending the route by the 4, 8, or 12 minutes is necessary to restart the route. I talked to Kat last week
Yeah.
after 2 weeks ago after the meeting, and I didn't really understand why
Yeah.
those things can't work with each other.
Yeah. So the way that our routes are scheduled, a layover time isn't just like time that we need to burn to start the next amount of time. It's like a cushion. So like, if you think of like when you leave for work in the morning, and on a good day it takes you 30 minutes, but on a bad day maybe it takes you an hour, you still have to give yourself an hour to get to work because you don't know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day, right? So the layover for us isn't like if you get to work 30 minutes early, it only took you 30 minutes that day, you don't like drive around the block for 30 minutes, you go into work and you start your day and maybe you leave a little early, right? So for us, the layover isn't extra time that we need to burn, it's time that we need to set aside just in case we have a trip that takes a little longer. And that means that then we can start the next trip on time. So if it's a 20-minute long trip, or I think it's 24 minutes depending on the time of day from Wonderland to Ocean Street, and we have an 8-minute layover, then that means that 50% of the time it takes 24 minutes or less, but 90% of the time it takes 32 minutes or less. So, because that 50% is included, right? So the extra time there means that for those 10% of trips that take closer to 32 minutes than 24, they're more likely to start on time because they had that extra layover time set aside for them as a cushion at the end of the route. Does that make sense more?
It does, but I don't think it, so if you're early, right? Kat said last week in the discussion I had, if the bus is early, it doesn't not go on to the next stop. If it's 2 minutes early on its path to the next stop, it keeps going 2 minutes early.
Right.
So if
Oh.
if my bus was supposed to be there at 10, and the bus got there
Right.
from the standpoint of the bus being early, it doesn't give you that,
Yeah,
but you're trying to make up for the bus being late,
yeah.
creating a layover, so can you explain?
Yeah, so in terms of being early, so the bus, if it's in between the beginning and if it's in between the beginning of the route and the end of the route, it's not going to stop at an individual stop if it's early, because the idea is there's people who got on that bus and they want to keep going, right? So the way that we do our route planning is what the MBTA considers on time, which I'm not here to debate because I have personal feelings about that, is 1 minute early to 6 minutes late. So at each stop in between the beginning and the end, if you're between a minute early and 6 minutes late, then you're on time, right? So the idea is we skew it that way so that you're less likely to miss the bus if you got to the stop at the time we said the bus was going to be there, because it's more likely that the bus is late than that it's early. So, however, at the end of the route, if the bus was early, the bus will wait there until the beginning of its next trip. So if it's a 441, 442 headed back to Wonderland and the bus gets to Ocean Street and it's, say, 5 minutes early, which never happens, but you didn't hear it from me, 5 minutes early, then it's going to wait out those 5 minutes and then the layover time and loop around in order to get back to the beginning of the route in the other direction on time. So it does, if it's early, it will wait at the end of the route until the scheduled time. Yeah. Does that, the look on your face tells me it doesn't quite make sense?
Well, no, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but so if I'm sorry I'm taking up everybody's time, but I'm trying to get to the heart of why the layover is necessary in the first place. So if the window is 2 minutes early and 6 minutes late, and the average lateness of the bus takes you from 24 minutes to 32 minutes, are we talking about a 2-minute time difference that we're doing a layover for on average? Or is it more than that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'd be happy to pull up the scheduling software, but I don't have a projector and it would put everyone to sleep.
Is how,
Yeah.
much of an impact are we willing to have in the neighborhood if we're literally talking about 2, 3, or 4 minutes?
Yeah. So I have, in fact, we charted out, I don't know if you guys have the handout we charted out the actual times that we would expect a bus to be laying over based on our service standards. So that's the 1 minute early to 6 minutes late. And we did it for a couple other locations as well at the councilor's request, to show that there are other neighborhoods throughout the system where there's layover locations in front of houses. In fact, at the very end of 441 and 442 in Marblehead, they have 2 buses laying over during most of the morning and 1 laying over all throughout the day. In Jeffreys Point in East Boston, they have 1 pretty much throughout the whole day. So this one is pretty much, like I said, we're going to readjust the schedule so that starting in late December, early January, we only need 1 spot instead of 2. But this one is during sort of like the morning into early afternoon, and then like the late afternoon into the late evening. So in terms of a need for a layover spot, it's not unique to this particular neighborhood, and it does happen within other neighborhoods that are even more residential in Lewis, Broad Lewis Ocean. I think I lost your question by now.
Okay,
Sorry.
So basically the question is, if that window is 7 minutes,
Yeah.
between being early and being late,
Yeah.
and it's mapped out right now, you mentioned 24 minutes,
Yeah.
average, is that talking about 2 minutes, the variance of 2 minutes in the schedule that's creating the layover in the first place?
Yeah. So
Mr. Chairman, could I just say something for a second? Again, I'm probably looking to ask to have this set down for a public hearing. At that time, the MBTA would probably be bringing their experts with all the time schedules and everything to answer the questions, which would be open to the whole public because it would be a public hearing. So a lot of the expertise that you may not have tonight would happen at that public hearing. So what I'm looking tonight is probably to set it down for a public hearing, which then the people would have the input. What I'm looking to do tonight is set it down for the public hearing just to do some signs. And that would be on a temporary basis just for 90 days for the signs. What I could do is put an emergency preamble on it, so it will stop parking at the other location, the triangles and these other spots. So at the next meeting, the public could have their input on these two signs that we're looking to put up. It would just be restricting the parking from 5 a.m. in the morning on Monday to 2 a.m. on Saturday. What we would do is, we would have to set that down for a public hearing to put those two signs up at that location to try it. I can also, in the motion, make it for a 90-day trial period, and we can put an emergency on it so the signs can go up quicker. That way we can figure out what's happening. But all we're looking to do tonight is, there's nothing on the agenda for tonight, and it's nice that the chairman and the councils and everybody is having everybody's input, but I think at the next meeting, there would be a lot more input on statistics. And what we'd be looking to do tonight is set it down to put the signs up for that no parking area between 5 a.m. and 2 a.m. Mr. President, do you have any?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with the committee putting it down for a public hearing because we haven't worked out.
The only thing we'd be putting down is the two signs.
I don't know if the city attorney agrees with me. If he doesn't, then that's fine, I'll go along with that. But there's not a need to have a public hearing at this point.
If we want to put the no parking signs up, we'd have to have a public hearing to put them up.
Well, we can do it as a emergency, am I correct?
Through the chair, where this is an emergency temporary motion, there's no requirement for that. If in fact it's going to be permanent, then it would be set down.
Right.
So we don't have to do a hearing.
That's what my concern is. And I
So we
think
don't have to do a
that's what
public
the
hearing.
Concern of everybody in the neighborhood, once you have a public hearing, anything can happen at a public hearing. Any motion can be put down, and if accepted by the board, then that's it. That's why I'm asking the board not to put it down for a public hearing. Go with the trial basis, put temporary
So we-
signs up.
We can do it with a trial basis without having the, if we put an emergency on it, we don't have to have a public hearing, Mr.
So
Markopoulos.
long as it's temporary.
Temporary.
Yeah,
with some
which
type
would be
of-
90 days.
Yes.
Now, within 90 days, you have to come back and figure out if that's the spot to put it. That's,
All right, you want to make a motion then about that? Just
Is there any questions, or? At this time, I'd like to make the motion to put the no parking there, other than for the MBTA layover station between 5 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Monday to 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, which means people could park there after 2 a.m. till 5 o'clock in the morning on Monday. So on Saturday and Sunday, there would be parking till Monday morning.
And this is just 90 days.
90 days.
Temporary.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion made and seconded to allow the MBTA to use that spot from Monday at 5 a.m. to Saturday at 2 a.m. for a 90-day period only, just to temporary, to see how that works out. And then we'd have to have a public hearing afterwards.
Yes. And again, Mr. Chairman, I think the MBTA is very, and the city council, everybody is very cognizant about people parking in front of the houses. I think that's why the MBTA came up with the island, because that was, they figured at the time, that was gonna be the least disruptive for the neighborhood. So they were looking for a spot. Unfortunately, the island is not gonna work, so they were looking to get it away from the houses. If you call the question?
Motion was made, did you?
Second it.
Yeah, I second it.
All right, motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? And it's a vote.
Like to make a motion to adjourn?
I second the motion.
Andy, do you have any?
Motion made and seconded to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And it's a vote.